Greetings, my name is Timothy Collinson. I'm the Faculty Librarian for Technology, and this video is going to take us through some of those little nitty-gritty details in referencing that some people occasionally trip up on. So I'm going to try and share my slides with you, and you should be able to hopefully see their nice painting there by Church from 1875, the iceberg. And this is a very good example of a reference that I found in a database, in a library database, and it offers a cite button which gives you that reference at the bottom, but that is not correct APA style, even though it's trying to be. So I will talk at the end about some resources that will help you with that. Perhaps in technology, we're not perhaps so often referencing pictures and so on. More normally, we're referencing book material and that kind of thing. So let's think about books at first. So for a print book, the information that we want to put into our reference is the author, the date of publication, the title of the book, and the publisher. For an ebook, it's the author, the date, the title, the publisher, and a URL or a DOI. That's a uniform resource locator you're probably familiar with from the web, or a DOI is a digital object identifier, which is used as a kind of permanent URL to follow journal articles and the like around. For a journal, if you notice, it's almost exactly the same information: author, date, title, and now instead of publication as one publisher, you've now got publication broken down into the journal title, the volume, the issue number, and the pages. You may not always have both a volume and an issue number. In that case, you only have to put what you have. And then for an e-journal, exactly the same: author, date, title, the publication information, made up of, as before, journal title, volume, issue number, pages, and then also a URL or a DOI, as with an ebook. So here's an example taken from the civil engineering and surveying realm, Building Measurement by Andy Packer, published in 2017. There's the library catalogue record for it, and that usually has all the bibliographic information that you actually need. So if you are looking for this information, don't miss the library catalogue as a source of finding it. But if you find the book in Discovery, you'll also find that there's a little cite button over on the right-hand side, which can try to put together a reference for you. As I said in a previous video, you need to be a little bit cautious with these because they're not always 100% accurate. So always check them against referencing at Portsmouth to make sure that the layout and the formatting is all correct. Here's a electronic book, another print book. Pittard and Sell, BIM, that's building information modeling and quantity surveying, and how you might lay that out as a chapter in an edited book. A little bit more complicated, but you've still got author, date, title, and then you've got the in portion that tells you which book it's in, the chapter comes from, and then you've got the publisher at the end. So it's a little wrinkle, and that's what the templates in referencing at Portsmouth can help you with, so that you know what information is required. Couple of little pitfalls here as well. You should only be putting the initials of the authors in a reference, not the full names. I often make a note of the full names because I find it helps my memory with who a person might be, but it's not required in your reference list or your bibliography. Do look out for the down style that's required for book titles and journal article titles, where everything should be in lowercase except for the first word, any abbreviations, and any proper nouns. So in this case, BIM is an abbreviation, so that has all capitals, but quantity and surveying all lowercase. And then especially if you've been at a university for a little while, look out for the fact that you no longer need a place of publication. It used to have to be a real pain looking that up. Now you just need the publisher name, which does make things a little bit easier. And again, for a chapter in an edited book, you can see there the solution in APA format. Notice also that the page numbers are put in there for a chapter in a book. Sometimes people start putting page numbers in for anything they're referencing. That's not always required. And the other thing is you have an in statement as well. So do look out for putting that in if you're talking about an edited book chapter. So the things in highlights are not everything that you need to know, but they are sort of some common pitfalls, some common errors, and we just encourage you to look out for them. Here's an example of an ebook found on eBook Central, our biggest collection. So I would warmly recommend that for virtually any subject you might be doing. Again, the bibliographic information is in here. And again, there is a cite button, but check it against referencing at Portsmouth. Here's what it might look like in APA 7th format. There's the authors, or in this case, the editors, the date, the title, the publisher, and as we said before, the URL. Do note that the publisher name is now included in an ebook, which wasn't previously the case, so watch out for that little wrinkle. And do look for the ebook provider's URL, not the whole ebook URL, which can be much longer and very ugly. And you can see an example down at the bottom. That's not what required. That's not what is required. You just have to put the provider URL, which is often much shorter, so it's a little bit easier. Here's a journal article, for example, and that's how that might look as an APA 7th edition reference. And you can see that everything's a little bit longer, but it's still the same information: author, date, title, and then the journal title, the volume number in italics. It's a nice little wrinkle, the issue number in parenthesis, the page number, and then the DOI to locate it. Note a couple of things. Down style for the title, again, all lowercase, unless you've got any proper nouns, abbreviations, or the first word, of course. Do watch out for that little wrinkle of the volume number being in italics, but the issue number is not. I have no idea why that is, but that's a feature of APA 7th edition. And then don't forget that you don't put PP for pagination in front of a journal page numbers, just like you did in the edited book. It's again just a little bit of a variation, so it's a bit of a pain. But in the citing, in the citation in the main text, you might include it depending if it's required. Also note that there's no full stop at the end of a URL or a DOI. And once again, this is not everything you need to pay attention to in the red circles, but they're key things that people often miss. Here's another little quote from Darwin from On the Origin of the Species. And he said, "I cannot here give references and authorities for his work." And he says he's going to come back to it later in a future work. I'm afraid that that is not acceptable in UK higher education, and we do need to do referencing. So if it's good enough for Darwin, I'm afraid it's not good enough for us. We do have access to reference management software, which can help you collect references. It can help you organize them, perhaps by subject area or by assignment, or perhaps you want to do it for your dissertation and prepare work like that for your final year. It can hold the links, it can store the PDFs, you can add notations, you can produce citations fairly easily. So if you're doing a few references, probably doing them manually is the easier way of doing it. But if you're doing lots of references, or you're getting into your dissertation or master's level or PhD, you might find using reference management software is helpful. And there's things like EndNote, there's Mendeley, there's Zotero. Some people particularly like Zotero for handling URLs. The two main ones I would say are EndNote and Mendeley. So do ask if you want any help getting into those. And there's other little tools that you might look out for as well. Over on the right hand side, the cite button that pops up in many databases. There's also a word referencing tool, but be really careful there, because if you put in garbage, you get garbage out. So you need to be a little bit wary of it. And then at the top there, our referencing at Portsmouth tool will take you through lots of templates for different things to reference, and then lots of examples so that you can lay them out accurately. So do go to library.port.ac.uk if you want to get to that help. You can see the big R button on the right hand side that takes you to referencing at Portsmouth. And do ask staff if you've got any questions or problems, and we'll do our best to help you. So I hope that's been helpful, kind of whiz through referencing and some of the things that trip people up. And I wish you all the best with your studies and your research. And as I say, come and ask if you've got any questions subsequently.